Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer meta here in Season 4 Reloaded is super competitive. We saw a lot of changes to some of the top tier weapons with the Season 4 Reloaded update. With that said, today we're going to be breaking down the new top 10 best weapons and best setups you want to be using. And we are starting first with the ISO 45, which yes, actually got some nerfs, but it's still very impressive for an SMG. First though, I want to break down the secondary perks, equipment, all sorts of stuff like that, because this is all the same on pretty much every single loadout, so we only have to go through this once, right? As far as a secondary goes, I'm always using a melee. I've been using the Tonfa on this loadout in specific just for, having some fun with that, but if you wanted to use the Kadachis or a knife, any melee is going to work fine. I use that for the movement speed. I take somebody out, I can pick up their weapon for, an actual secondary in-game. Flashes and drill charges work really well for me in multiplayer. Flashes are obviously super strong. Drills, Semtexes, Thermites, they're all really good in multiplayer as well. I like the drills because there's a lot of, sentinels, we'll say, campers, on certain maps, and those work well for getting them to move, right? And then as far as perks go, I'm always using double time, battle hardened, fast hands, and quick fix. Quick fix is so clutch in this game with the fast TTK, being able to heal as soon as you get that, first initial kill. I love that. Then I also use Field Upgrade Pro, and I switch between the radar and the munitions box. Whichever one I might need at any given time works well. Like I said, all that stuff is the same on every single class. But getting into the actual weapons here, as mentioned, the ISO 45, it caught a slight nerf, but it's still very, very good here in multiplayer. And curiously enough, I share the same loadout between multiplayer and Warzone here. So if this looks familiar, you're onto something. It just works great for close range engagements, and especially some mid-range here as well in multiplayer, since this is your main primary, right? We got the Lockshot KT85. This will help out. It's just a basic compensator, make the weapon a bit easier to control over the mid range in particular there. Close range recoil is not really a huge factor. 7mm laser for that better ADS and Sprintifire. You're going to see this on pretty much any SMG that we cover here today. 45 round drum is something I like to use. If you wanted to go stock 30 here, you absolutely could for multiplayer. Maybe replace this with an optic if you're not a fan of the iron sights, or even, one of the barrels like Raptor, for instance, could be pretty good for multiplayer. Trainer as well. So you could certainly experiment around, but I like having 45 just for my specific playstyle here. Sheer rear grip for the better ADS and Sprintifire, and then the Cheetah stock for all sorts of mobility benefits. Their ADS speed, strafe speed, sprint speed works really well as an aggressive SMG. So if you're running and gunning here in MW2 MP, this is one of my top recommendations. Now, of course, we gotta talk about the MX Guardian. This thing is absolutely insane here in multiplayer and probably the new best shotgun. So if you're running across shipment 24/7, shoot house even, you're gonna run into this a lot. Close range fights, nothing else really stands a chance against this thing. For multiplayer, I've been messing around with this setup. There's a few different ways you could build this though. Mobile barrel I really like for that added movement speed and range, so it helps out. Maybe can help you get that quicker kill without having to fire another round there because of that added range, right? The ULO 66 laser, or ULO 66, is better for hip fire control and accuracy, so that's perfect. We're pretty much exclusively hip firing a weapon like this. I go for the DCP-0 stock. This is sprint speed, strafe speed. ADS speed's not as big of a factor, but if you do find yourself ADSing, it helps out with that. That's all really clutch. Now, the last two attachments here, I've got the XRK Rush rear grip just behind the face cam. This helps out with Sprintifire and ADS. That's solid. Then I go for the Pro Mag magazine, which also helps out with ADS and Sprintifire. So for the full auto build, this in particular works really, really well. That said, if you want to be ultra toxic, you'll notice that you can't use Dragon's Breath in full auto. You have to basically switch over to burst fire or semi-auto, and both of these are really, really good. So I would say you drop the XRK Rush, you put on burst or semi-auto, then you drop the Pro Mag and put on Dragon's Breath if you want the super toxic setup. But regardless of how you build this thing, it's gonna be dominant. Like, the thing is just busted. Setup 3 here features the 74U, which, yes, actually just got the brand new barrel available for everyone in the KSTV. That said, in multiplayer, I don't really feel like you need to use this all that much. I feel like the 209 barrel, which I'm still running for the better movement speed and ADS speed, makes this more of that AR SMG hybrid ideal build than this barrel, because obviously this is going to slow you down some. In multiplayer, with how fast the TTK is as is, if you just simply land your shots with a 209 barrel equipped, you're gonna be just fine, right? The 74U, despite getting a slight nerf, is still one of the best options here in multiplayer. I also go for the Castle Compensator, just gonna make the weapon a bit easier to use. Olay Laser for the better ADS and sprint to fire. True TAQ rear grip also for the better ADS and sprint to fire. And the Atrazat stock as well, better strafe speed and better sprint speed, which is super ideal. So this is a very aggressive setup, really gives it the speed of an SMG or close to, and it's obviously got the power of a rifle, so it melts, it flies and fries, and I love it. Following that, I've got the M4, especially because we saw nerfs to things like the TAQ-56. The M4 is the go-to rifle in my opinion. Obviously, this has been restricted in multiplayer for some time from the CDL because the M4 was just too good. That's why they were using the TAQ-56. That's now even worse. There's no reason to use that over an M4 in my opinion. I just love the feel of this thing. It is old reliable, right? The M4 is always good in Call of Duty. So here I got the ZX rear grip. This is going to help out with that control, just make it a bit easier in the mid to long range. This setup in particular though is very versatile. That's why I go for the P80 strike stock, which is mainly meant for better mobility. So if you find yourself in a close range fight, this could help out there, but then you got the long range covered with things like the ZX grip as mentioned, Edge 47 for the better stability, Castle Compensator for the better control yet again, and then for a little bit better mobility as well and just overall aggressiveness, I go for the Olay Laser with that better ADS and sprint to fire. Hybrid build for sure, versatile as it comes, and it's the M4. I mean, what more do I have to say? We know how this thing behaves year in and year out. Now, setup 5 features the STB. This is a slept-on rifle. It's really a rifle and SMG type hybrid weapon. Up close, its TTK is phenomenal. Mid-range, its TTK is phenomenal. Even in long range, the TTK is phenomenal. It's also super easy to use, right? Low recoil. It's just so straightforward. Anyone can pick up this thing and do really well with it. So here I've got the Q900 rear grip. It's going to help out with ADS and sprint to fire. Just behind the face cam, I've got the C11 riser comb. This also helps out with your ADS and sprint to fire. I don't like the AUG iron sights though, so I go for the blue dot. This works fine for multiplayer and all the types of engagements you'll find yourself in there. 7mm laser for that faster ADS and sprint to fire. Then I go for the S901 barrel, which is better movement speed and ADS speed. So while this is a rifle, pretty much every single attachment here, sub the optic, is meant to turn this into an SMG AR hybrid. So if you're fighting at 10 meters, you could win with this thing. 40 meters, you could win with this thing. If you're playing ground war and fighting at 100 meters, you could still win with this thing. I love it. It's also extremely versatile, just like the M4, and it kills very quickly. Now, as we continue on throughout the MP setups here today, if you guys are new to the channel, I am your one-stop shop for all things going on in COD. News, updates, loadouts, tips, you name it. It's all right here on a daily basis. So feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, join us ultimately on the road to 1 million subs. And if you enjoy the video, if you find it helpful at all, a like rating would be seriously appreciated, as it does really help the channel grow. Now, setup 6 features another great hybrid rifle, the Razorback. This thing as an SMG AR hybrid also fries. This setup in particular, great mobility, relatively low recoil. I love the feel of it. Initially here, 45 round mag is going to be totally sufficient for multiplayer. If you wanted to upgrade to 60, you could, but I don't find that to be totally necessary. I got the ERG X1 rear grip for better control, just going to make the weapon feel a little bit easier. We tuned to enhance that a bit more. Olay Laser, better ADS and sprint to fire. The tanker barrel is going to help out with control and velocity, so this sort of helps out in the mid-range and beyond there. If you find yourself in those fights, it's going to still be reliable, even though you do have so much added aggression and added mobility with this setup. I also go for the Castle Compensator as well, once more, just to help out with that recoil control. So low recoil, fast TTK, pretty good mobility for a rifle. This is sort of your do-it-all option right now. And would you be surprised if setup 7 also featured another hybrid rifle in the Chimera? This is kind of the definition of the rifle category. You've got decent options like the 7.62 and the TAQ-56, which are all right for the mid to long range, but also certain LMGs can also fry in the mid to long range. The M4 can fry in the mid to long range. The Chimera here, just like the Razorback, just like the 74U, works so well for MP aggressive gameplay. Low recoil, again, phenomenal TTK, and for a rifle, it moves. Like, it's got decent mobility. I got the Bruin Flash rear grip on here to help out with said mobility. The Ravage 10 stock also going to help out with said mobility, and the 7mm laser also helping out with said mobility. I got the Tango underbarrel on here. If you wanted to drop this for a compensator instead, you could, but it's just there for the mid-range to make it a little bit more reliable and easier to use. Lastly, I go for the Vorpal barrel. This helps out with the movement speed and the ADS speed. I'm pretty sure the damage range there isn't actually a factor according to the data mine stats, unless they've gone through and changed that again, which they do in secret in the background. But regardless, this setup is very aggressive as well for a rifle. I love the feel of this one, and it's kind of interchangeable with this, the Razorback, the 74U. All these are kind of the same style, and it's just sort of preference based on which one you think is best, but they're all so dominant. Now for setup 8, we've got another SMG in the Lachmann sub, the MP5, another one that's just like the M4 is pretty much always good in Call of Duty. It's an iconic weapon that we've seen countless times, and it's always been a top tier choice. Same stands true here in Season 4 Reloaded. So I go for the TCG-10 rear grip, better control, just if you find yourself in the mid-range, it'll help out there. And I also got the better mobility stats on here too for the tuning, so it's kind of the best of all worlds in one attachment. The 50-round drum is something sort of left over from Warzone as a setup here that I share between the two. If you wanted to, you could drop that and throw on a compensator if needed. You could throw on a stock, maybe the mirror or the mobile. Even, you know, no stock here if you're really wanting that extra mobility and slightly added control. You could live with that in multiplayer as well. Sort of preference based there, just comes down to what you find the most applicable. You could also just drop down to 40 if that's a bit more comfortable and you like the better speed there. Overpressured ammo is going to help out with that added flinch. If you land a shot, it might cause the enemy to flinch up too much and miss their shots. Bada bing, bada boom, you win the gunfight, right? 7mm laser, faster ADS and sprint to fire. Falcon barrel, better movement speed and better ADS speed. So enhancing the aggression here, enhancing the mobility even more. You can fly and fry with this thing. Fantastic SMG choice, up there with the Vaznev, up there with the MP5. They're all really competitive right now. Now, loadout number 9, I've got the TAQ-V. This thing is just straight up a powerhouse. And here in multiplayer, it's even more welcoming and sort of forgiving, I would say, than in Warzone, because you're just not gonna be fighting at like 150 meters like you could in Warzone with this thing. It's a little bit more condensed here in multiplayer, so you don't have to worry about the recoil that this thing has. It's a bit more noticeable than some other weapons. But when you land your shots, you're pretty much good to go because it's going to just rip right through them. So we got the combat rear grip for the better control straight up. I go for the 30-round mag here. That works fine for multiplayer. Ruin Warrior underbarrel. It's going to help out with basic control, basic steadiness, just make it a lot easier to use. There's also plenty of other underbarrel options that are good too. Ripper, lock grip precision. You could definitely test around and see which one feels the best for you. Sack and Tread 40 compensator, just straight up better control. And then I sort of bounce back between a laser and a barrel here. If you want the added range and velocity, precision is a perfectly applicable choice. It's not going to help out with the control at all though, so it's not, I feel like, as viable in multiplayer. But if you want some aggression here and just to be a little bit more consistent in like the mid-range, if you are a run and gun type player, even with your rifles, Olay laser will help out fine there. Clean optics, obviously, because it's a SCAR, so you don't need to waste like a blue dot or anything there. This setup in particular, I found a lot of success with. I really like the feel, and it gets the job done. And then lastly here, I got another mid to long range beast, the FTAC Recon. Now, the ammo supply here is a concern. You got to be mindful of your ammo count, but this thing has the power. If you land your shots, good luck to those enemies. I'll see you in the kill cam, right? Because this thing's going to absolutely rip. It's such a beast. So as mentioned, the ammo supply is rough. 15-round mag is necessary here, and that's actually as big as it gets, right? So you definitely want to be mindful of that. Pay attention to when you have to reload. For me, the basic blue dot works fine for multiplayer type engagements. The long range, the mid range, the close range, that'll be totally sufficient. Olay laser just for some added ADS speed here. That said though, if you wanted to drop that for a compensator or something, you could do that as well. I got the Ripper underbarrel. Stabilization is so key on semi-auto weapons for that recenter and whatnot, just making it more reliable and more consistent and predictable over long range. So that's a must have. Then I go for the 419mm barrel for the better range and velocity in this case, just because we're using this at those extreme ranges in some cases, or you can use this and do really well with it at those extreme ranges, and that makes it more efficient there. So one of the rare barrel sightings in MP, but this thing, like I said, it's a bit more niche, has a higher entry barrier, if you will, or a higher skill gap, but it's high risk, high reward. It will fry and it will dominate lobbies if you can, you know, land your shots consistently. And that being said, those are the top 10 best weapons to be running here in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer right now. And that's going to wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out so you can always stay up to date with all things going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.